Mayor Bruno.
Here, please stand for tonight's invocation and pledge of allegiance. Tonight's prayer will be led by Pastor Doug Carlson, Grace Missionary Church. Good to see you.
You too, Mayor Bruno. You do a much better job filling your sanctuary than I do mine. Even the front seats are taken. It's good to be back there. Let's pray. God in heaven, I thank you so much for the beautiful day and for the change in season. Thank you, Father God, for the answer to all of our prayers that COVID is receiving. To have it in the rearview mirror is so much of something we've been praying for so long. And I know, Lord, there's still issues and it's still out there, but keep us safe. Thank you, Father God, for this group, for their courage and discernment to make decisions through the time. And now, Father God, as we open up and are able to enjoy the beautiful village you've given to us. Thank you for the lakefront and for the trails. Thank you for the marina. Thank you, Father God, for the people who live here and work here and raise their children here. It's so good to see folks out and about. It's good to see faces again. I thank you, Father God, for all these things. You tell us that every good gift and every perfect gift comes down from above, from the Father of lights, with whom is no variation or shadow of turning. And we have been the recipient of so many of those good gifts. I start with thanksgiving to you for that. I pray, Father, for blessing for the mayor and the trustees, those who are elected positions, those who have been chosen to fill important roles in our community. I ask, Father God, for continued grace upon them, good health to them and their family. I pray, Father, for unity as we go forth. I thank you, Father, for my community. Thank you that we can come out in force like this to be able to have a voice in how our village is run. So I thank you for all things. I thank you mostly for Jesus, who loves us and is the answer to all of our questions, the solution to all of our problems, and our help in chaos. And I pray, Father, for blessing tonight and for the days going forward. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of the minutes of previous meeting or meetings. I need a motion to approve the April 15th, 2021 virtual committee of a whole meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. We move on to the second item. I need a motion to approve the May 18th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I had a couple things. One, I want to correct the record on and apologize. Last meeting was not Trustee Hargit's 40th birthday. That was me trying to be funny. 39. He was only 39.
Christine,
I saw the minutes and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the text from Trustee Hargit about how I put it into the record that it was his 40th birthday. So I apologize for the right, 39. That's what I said. The other thing I wanted to comment on, I just wanted to, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Trustee Whitmore, but just respond to the statement that was made in unfinished business, that you had a chance to express your concerns on the code enforcement and the letter and correspondence between Attorney Long and the IDNR. And I didn't know what you were going to say, and I had some time to process that. And I feel very strongly about this situation as well, but I have a different opinion. And a few of the things I did in the meantime was reflect on through the history of our relationship with the marina, with WestRec and code enforcement, and with the fact of the history of permits being pulled there. I also reread the letter from Attorney Long that you referenced to Pam Gray with IDNR, and I read it a couple weeks ago and I thought, okay, it covers everything. And in context, I read it today, and honestly, I was amazed at how well I thought it was written. I thought it very clearly stated our history, addressed what seemed to be the context that there was an alternative history of our relationship with the marina down there, which he clarified, and then went into the history of that. You know, I feel that in everything we've done with this, we've done it the way we've always done it, and we've done it the correct way. And the fact is, the history of the relationship shows that that's the correct way as well because of actions taken by multiple businesses at the marina. So I just want to express that, and I want to, too, since I'm responding to what you said, ask if you would like to clarify anything on that, because I don't understand what the statement is that Attorney Long did incorrectly in this situation.
Yeah, as I stated in that, in the letter that he wrote, he stated that the Marina West Track was A, not an economic engine, and B, that they are, and I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize, it's not word for word, they are prohibiting tourism down there at the lakefront, or they are one of the only businesses in this town bringing out-of-town guests down to our marina, our lakefront, and our town.
But in my opinion, those statements aren't what the letter is about, what the issue is about, which is whether we have the right to enforce our ordinances and codes down there, which is what my understanding of this letter was and what my understanding of this issue is with it. So my question then is, are you saying that we should not be enforcing the codes, or we should be enforcing the codes, or what?
Well, I believe that the state of Illinois is taking care of that with the village at this time.
What do you mean?
State of Illinois is stating that this is their property, and we do not hold regulations over their property, and I believe that they are already in contact with Mr. Long.
They have not been.
So, I honestly, I still don't understand, because I went back to and looked, permits have been pulled historically by the other businesses down there, and by Westrec. They pulled permits for the pool, is that correct?
Yes.
They pulled permits for other work they've done when they expanded the store, correct? I mean,
Yeah,
so the understanding of our ability to do that is correct. So Attorney Long and the village for citing them is not incorrect. I mean, there are avenues for anyone who has an issue with the permit process, with the specifics of it, to come before the board and plead their case. So I feel like, I don't know where it's changed, where all of a sudden we went from being responsible for enforcing codes, which had to do with safety, to now being the bad guy for doing that.
Well, when you have IDNR stating that this is their property. and
Where did they state that?
Multiple times. Pam Gray wrote a letter to Attorney Long.
No, Pam Gray did not write a letter to Attorney Long.
We have a lot of people here, I want to be clear on this, because I don't even know who Pam Gray is. But I do know the history of what we tried to do with this, and that's what I'm trying to understand what's going on. So who is Pam Gray, and what is her responsibility to speak for the IDNR?
Pam Gray is the Director of Concessions, I believe, in real estate at IDNR. I can't give you her exact title because I don't have it in front of me. But she's the one that sent communication to Pat DePercio regarding clarification on who was doing the work. Was it in fact being done on behalf of the state, or was it being done on behalf of Westrec, who is the leasing?
And that's what's in the contract, and that's what the law says, that the state doesn't have to do any permits, but anyone who leases property down there has to follow through and follow our codes and our permit process, correct?
That's correct. And I think part of and Attorney Long, let me know if I'm speaking out of turn, I think part of the issue is the claim, well, let me back up and also remind some of the trustees who asked the question. I have had contact with Ryan Cree, who is the director of all the parks for the entire state of Illinois, who didn't know any of this was transpiring. In fact, his comment to me in my email, which I'm happy to share with the board, was, "Thank you, Greg, for sharing." Wow, in big bold letters. The issue would have been when the marina was taken by the state of Illinois cleared the property to take the marina. They took houses that were down at that marina and relocated every one of those residents for their own use of property. So all those residents who had their homes and families there were pretty much uprooted. That being said, they certainly exercised their legal authority to put the park within those boundaries, but the park sits, by every count, by every zoning map, within the municipal boundary of Winthrop Harbor. The boundary is fully laid out, and there is state property there. There's no argument that is state property, but that state property sits within our borders. And that's the dispute. We've seen documentation where it says, even on the state property, if you're doing a special event permit, which Mark Stevens, the manager of that West Track operation down there, furnished me, it says that permits can be pulled, but there's two different sections in there which say that adherence to all local regulations, ordinances, or laws are required. And so our position is, especially as it relates to life safety issues, more than anything else, the life safety issues, public health issues, that permits have to be pulled in compliance with our responsibility as a municipality that covers that area of property within the boundaries of Winthrop Harbor. Correspondence to Attorney Long, unless I was not included in something which is probably not likely there, because the mayor's been included in communication, I've been included in communication, Attorney Long has. We have not received any communication in response to the letter that Attorney Long has sent, or has not been any communication with IDNR at any level at this point in time. Unless that happened from our elected representatives who we discussed our concerns with.
I have
Yes.
received anything.
No.
My other concern with that too, and again, we don't have a verbatim record, so I know you mentioned like the opening us to lawsuits, but my concern with that is that if we are doing it right and the state takes legal action, it's Attorney Long's job to defend our case, not to roll over, on what the state's saying, because I feel, and I don't know if other board members, feel the same, but I feel we have a very strong position to this. It's set by precedent, and I remember, and I went down memory lane today and watched the video from February of 2017, when Westrec came in. I'm sure the other board members recall that, a very contentious meeting where, we made this case very clear, and then parties, Mayor Lloyd, Mayor Robart sat down with them and came up with an agreement that clearly stated about permits being pulled for the pool, permits being pulled for the store, maybe not permits for the store, but I think the liquor license being, but so clearly stating that the lessee would abide by what our code is and follow that. So if they're going to threaten legal action, I feel like, it's Attorney Long's job to be defending us in that, and that's what he's paid to do, correct? Is that correct?
That is correct, and in
Yeah,
fact,
it's
there has been no
fair.
threat of litigation from anyone. The only one that's brought up litigation was Trustee Whitmore.
So I don't understand, and again, I'm trying to understand this position because I feel very strongly, in a different way about it.
Yeah, and as I stated in the meeting, that we are opening ourselves up to litigation with the state, and us as taxpayers are not okay with this. And we don't have the funds, we don't have any extra funds this year to open ourselves up to litigation, especially with the state with better resources and more funding than we will ever have.
So because of that, we shouldn't enforce the codes that
If you're
that
gonna
we've
pick
taken
a
an
fight
oath
with
to.
the state over a sign in
Well,
a state,
I would disagree with picking a fight. I believe we have our ordinances and our codes for a reason. It's our job to enforce them. And honestly, I don't want any of the staff to ever feel out of place or ashamed or embarrassed for doing the job that we've set forth for them to do.
Here's what I'll add to this. So we have 30 years of precedent of permits being pulled by leasing companies down there. And it's okay to say Westrec is a world-class organization in running marinas. It's okay to say Harbor Brewing is a destination that attracts people to our community. The Sweet Stop will be a great complementary piece down there, that the charter fleet is wonderful, that the yacht club does a great job, that the Tropics, right, that all of these are really good, strong businesses, and also say they fall under our code, right? We have 30 years of precedent that show that, and I think to say that our codes don't apply depending on the neighborhood of our town that you're in, or our codes don't apply depending on who your landlord is advocating for a good old boys club, right? That this applies here, but not here, and I think we have to speak out firmly against that sort of approach, right? The codes apply, and I think the best thing we can do to support our businesses is be clear and consistent of saying we have fair and reasonable policies, ordinances, code, and we're gonna treat everyone the same way in relation to it, so they all know the rules that they're playing by.
Yeah, well, I believe that this administration definitely knows the ins and outs of being a good old boys club, so that's great that you brought that up. But like I said, I do
What do you,
not see.
what do you mean? No, I mean, and you said it, explain what that means and your understanding. Because
There's
I didn't think
definitely
that.
groups in this board, and some of us do not fall in that group.
Might I add something here? I was on the planning and zoning board when we had the other businesses come in. And they have to follow the municipal code, and they lease the property like Westrec. And it states that any company that comes in and leases property on state land has to follow the municipal codes like they do everywhere else. It's just not Winthrop Harbor. It is in Chicago. It is anywhere else. They have to follow the municipal codes. And we are the authority over that. It's not if the state wants it. The state gives that authority to Winthrop Harbor, gave it to Chicago, gave it to Waukegan for their marina, and everybody else that leases any state property. This is what happens. So this is what about the tropics? They have to follow all the codes and municipal, and they lease that property. What about Skipper Buds? They lease that property too. They have to follow the codes. And I remember when Skipper Buds balked at some of the codes, guess what? The state relinquished that and said, Winthrop Harbor, you take care of it. So, why not Westrec? Nothing's changed in 30 years. Nothing's changed. It's not if the state owns the property, but they lease it. You know, and they lease it out, and when they lease it out, it's up to the authority of that municipality to take care of the codes. And, you know, it wouldn't be fair to Skipper Buds, it wouldn't be fair to the Tropics and to any other business that comes in. If a hotel gets put in there, guess what? They're gonna have to follow the municipal codes. Period.
I wanna go back and speak, so that the issue of accusing it, because using this term, the good old boys club, implies that there is influential relationships and things like that. I can understand that there might be a majority, you know, and a minority that disagree on things, but disagreeing, in my opinion, is not a good old boys club. When you have people who have personal relationships and business relationships outside of the business of the board, then that, I believe, is a good old boys club. I believe when people have influence because of who they know, I believe that is, but I can speak for myself. I have no personal relationships with anybody on this board or, you know, in this community, and I don't like the term being thrown around, good old boys club, you know,
Well,
with that.
I do know that several people on this board have separate meetings, separate talks. I mean, how many of you guys were reached out to by Greg that he's leaving? I was the only trustee not called to let know that he's leaving. I mean, there's a lot of factors where I find out at board meetings, or I find out on Facebook, because you guys don't want to include certain individuals on this board. And it's a shame, but that's okay.
But I don't know specifics of who's talking. I don't know who talks to who. Again, that's a fact. I don't have personal relationships with anybody, and if I talk to anyone, it's village business. And to say meetings, just to clarify, there's no meetings, as that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. I've never gotten together or talked specifically with more than one other board member at one time up here, and I am assuming the same for others with that.
Okay.
Note for the record, there have been no complaints filed of Open Meetings Act violations in the past 25 years.
Any more, Dana? Anybody? Anybody else? All right. Motion second. I need a roll call.
Target,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Feel free to say my name. Okay, we move on to Mayor's report. I need a motion to adopt appointment resolution appointing Edward Moan to the position of Chief of Police.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right.
I was gonna get that one.
I need Ed Moan.
Want to do a roll call first?
Oh, okay. Roll call, please. Could do that.
Target. Levin. Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carries. Come on up here. Chief? Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
Edward Moan,
Having been appointed as the Chief of Police
having been appointed as the Chief of Police
for the Village of Winthrop Harbor
for the Village of Winthrop Harbor
in Lake County, Illinois,
in Lake County, Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Chief of Police
the duties of Chief of Police
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
And I asked Chief Brumlick, my mentor and coach, and the person that is most responsible for me being standing up here today, to come in pin on my first chief badge.
I don't get cuts, they're paramedics. Well, I couldn't be more honored and proud to do this to what I think I share with many of our colleagues in law enforcement as to one of the finest law enforcement officers in this state, if not this country. He's done remarkable things throughout his career, and I feel blessed that the Village of Winthrop Harbor is going to be in good hands and served well. So
Thank you, Chief.
I will do this as carefully.
Go for it.
He's better than I am. He's got his girls there. I don't know if I cut that. All right, I'm going to put it there. You can clean it up.
All right, move on. I need a motion to promote Tony Cologne to the position of Police Sergeant.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Target.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Tony? I asked Chief of Moan if I could do the oath of office for Tony, because he sits on our pension fund, and I like to pick on him all the time. Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
Tony Cologne,
Having been appointed
having been appointed
a police sergeant for the Village of Winthrop Harbor
police sergeant for the Village of Winthrop
in
Harbor
Lake County, Illinois,
in Lake County, Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
of
Constitution
the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of a police sergeant
the duties of a police sergeant
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. I'm going to have my wife, my love of my life, come off and pin it. The insurance is paid up.
Yeah, Tony came on our pension when Officer Beckley left the department, and he's been filling that position very well. He was actually around Lake, he's at the pension fund there, so he comes in with a lot of history and a lot of knowledge, so. He's definitely an asset on the pension fund. Glad to have him. I'm glad you're made sergeant. Congratulations. Item 3, I need a motion to set aside the roles of the President and Board of Trustees to waive the first and second readings of ordinance amending multiple sections of the liquor control provisions of the municipal code of Winthrop Harbor, expanding outdoor hospitality opportunities.
So moved.
Discussion? This is actually, Greg, would you like to elaborate a little bit on exactly what this is going to entail?
This will entail, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, at the request of a couple businesses in town, Harbor Brewing and specifically the VFW, they were looking for an opportunity to retain outside service, which is not allowed with their current A license and club license, respectively. I think we discussed that during the pandemic, the outside service was probably one of the only ways that some of these businesses survived, and that going in post-pandemic, there are still going to be people who seek to sit outside and have outside service because of concern about the pandemic and the virus. And we collectively thought that putting together a ordinance that would allow an H license without having a G license, which is the current requirement under the ordinance, would afford those businesses the opportunity to expand their service outside, perhaps even grow their business a little bit. And we came back and I worked with Attorney Long to create this ordinance. This is a pilot ordinance. We'll see how it goes this year. I think it will be successful. I believe that there will not be any problems with it, in my view. It requires that the business provide a layout of what the outside of the beer garden is going to look like, so we make sure we have a sense of proper decor plus control of the environment by the establishment, so people just can't come in and out.
And a parameter.
Yeah, and some other issues or items addressed are noise control, so we don't disturb the neighbors that may be within a residential distance of this property. I think it's a good ordinance. I think it will be a successful ordinance. I think it helps the business community, and it would be my recommendation to the board that the board approve the ordinance.
One other question, that declaration has not been lifted, so.
No, the governor has not lifted his declaration yet, Mayor, so right now they can still, we're still allowing them to operate outside. We don't know when the governor's going to lift it. Some have said it was going to be at the end of June. Others are saying that the declaration may be extended a little bit longer, waiting to see what the positivity rate and if it should rise for whatever reason.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, not certain that's going to happen. My recommendation would be, and I know both the petitioners for this are anxious to have this thing done so that they can figure out their business plan going forward. So I would suggest that we advise them, if they're here, they're obviously hearing, but we advise them that as soon as they can turn that around, we're more than happy to get the application processed. You as the liquor commissioner would then approve it, and if we can get an idea of sense of what the Layout's going to be, we hope to get them up and running as an official H license holder as soon as possible.
So get all the paperwork in and pay the permits?
Yeah, Julie's ready to go for an H license as soon as the board approves.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that?
Well, I would just suggest that if the emergency order from the governor gets lifted between now and our next meeting, when we can actually vote to approve those licenses, that we have a stay of enforcement until we're able to actually issue the licenses.
I believe the mayor is given under the ordinance, you don't need to approve them separately.
Okay. Because they have one
Because they have an
license.
existing-
They already have been approved for a license. This is an adjunctive license.
All right, very good.
Very good, thank you, buddy. All right, roll call?
Hagan,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Moore.
Thanks.
Motion carried. We move on to village administrator's report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, tonight we'll have for your review and disposition fiscal year 21-22 budget, the fiscal year 21-22 wage policy ordinance, as well as the appropriations ordinance. To get some insight to the board members, we had an intergovernmental breakfast about a week ago with Congressman Snyder and his staff, State Representative Mason and her staff, senior staff from Senator Bush's office, and Township Supervisor Larry Booth. We discussed some of our issues related to legislation, as well as there's some legislation regarding TIF. There's some legislation regarding bargaining that, some things we touched on. But some of the other things we discussed with both the federal and state level were infrastructure funding for roads, water, and sewer, both pending from the federal level related to President Biden's infrastructure bill once that's approved, as well as the state level. We talked about funding for replacement of water service lead pipes. We also talked about the trail bill funding for the justice reform legislation, and as it pertains to the purchase of body cams. We're not required by size of municipality to outfit our police officers with body cams until 2025. I made a point of letting the representative know and the senator's staff that it's not the cost of the cameras that become prohibitive. It is, and they replace every few years, but it's the cost of the software and storage and server that's necessary to keep the data accessible. We talked about IDNR and the issues also related to the trail connectivity, lakeshore erosion, which was an issue you brought up, Mayor, and the hotel RFI. We're also just talked about our concern of IDOT's breakdown in communication from the Springfield level to the local level, especially as it pertains to our efforts to narrow Sheridan Road. So it's 2 lanes, much like the Libertyville look. So it gives better slowdown of traffic. It makes our businesses more visible to people going through the community,
And on-street parking.
but also to provide on-street parking to expand our parking opportunity. I do know for a fact that with subsequent conversation with the representative that she has had conversation with IDOT. She's doing follow-up again this week. And we, at this point, we talked about curb cuts, if that was still something that was realistic. It doesn't indicate that it is, but painting may very well be. So the representative's supposed to get back to us. As you know, and Mr. Long knows, and Pat DePercio, she was very frustrated with IDOT. Then we talked about also the support for financing both at the federal and state level for the second phase of streetscape, so that what we've done on 7th Street can be expanded on Sheridan from Russell Road coming all the way down to the downtown area. As a side note, we were advised by State Representative Mason that the village will receive a $250,000 grant to help support the replacement of the HVAC and roof system.
Right up here.
Yeah, for the municipal complex. What happened was I got a call from the representative on a Friday right towards the end of session at 8 o'clock in the morning. She says, in an hour, I need something, if you guys have something shovel ready. Fortunately, our staff has done an exceptional job, Tim especially, with his work on roads and having the road rehab at his fingertips, of allowing us to have access to projects that all we've got to do is submit because we've got a cost and a scope of project to the elected officials and get them approved. This was one of those cases where we turned around and an hour later, she pretty much knew that she was going to walk it through. So it was pretty positive. And if I could just take a moment to make some remarks, Mr. Mayor, members of the board.
Take as long as you want.
I recently informed Mayor Bruno that I'll be leaving Winthrop Harbor at the end of the month. The past 2 years have both been an honor and a privilege to serve this community, this village board, and to work with our dedicated staff. 15 of my 24 months, over 60% of my time, was about responding to and recovering from the pandemic. I'm proud of how our village handled the pandemic, and not just staff, but our residents. Confusing, scary, and even heartbreaking for some, it appears we've come out on the other end even stronger. Demand for public services continue and to a great extent fulfilled. Demand never diminished because our response, though having significantly reduced our human and financial resources, was relatively seamless. It should be noted that at one point, staff and administration was reduced by 40%, community development by 50%, parks and recreation by 66%, public works by 17%. Both fire and police departments experienced reductions due to attrition. The members of our fire department under Chief Street and now Chief Campanello are heroes. Their work in responding to the community needs associated with the deadly virus cannot go without recognition. At present, the department is going through growing pains. The days of a solely volunteer or paid-on-call fire department are gone. The task at hand is to find a way to deliver fire and EMS services efficiently and effectively to our community. This will require the community to come together with the village board and decide what is needed and how to pay for it. When you look at your tax dollars or tax bills, please remember that fire, police, parks and recreation, community development, streets, water, sewer, and administration come to you on an average of $2.10 a day. Your municipal government is not your largest portion of your tax bill. Many people realize that. The members of the police department under Chief Brumlick and former Deputy Chief and now Chief Moen were exceptional in the performance of their duties during the unnerving period of civil unrest. While neighbors to the north as well as the south experienced incidences of violence and extensive criminal damage to property, the village of Winthrop Harbor went untouched. Why? Because our officers are well trained in de-escalation, use of less than lethal force, and most importantly, trained to treat everyone they encounter with the respect they deserve as human beings. During my 2 years, I'm proud to say that we developed a strong intergovernmental relations program. As a result, we received funding or confirmation for funding for $100,000 for the Holdridge Bridge, $615,000 for the Public Works Building, $302,000 at Pierce funding to combat the pandemic, $444,000 of LPA funding, $250,000 in HVAC funding, and then based on numbers I ran today, the American Rescue Plan will bring $300,000 to $800,000 in the village. As a result, the village in these 2 years has received between $2 or $2.5 million. Though this doesn't include the grants for the fire, for ComEd, all departments through IPRF, these dollars are obtained from our intergovernmental partners, private sector partners that allow us to address operating and infrastructure issues without placing the burden on our taxpayers. Historically, these numbers in the 2 years are almost without precedence in Winthrop Harbor. During the pandemic, my office, under the direction of Mayor Bruno, led a communications effort with the business community that resulted in well over $300,000 in grants being received throughout the community. During the past 2 years, we consolidated purchasing for various back office and technology functions. We restructured departments in both function and staffing. We are developing an accounting process manual that never previously existed. We centralized human resources, enhanced community communication efforts, with more improvements to come. We also completed a wage analysis allowing the village to establish pay equity between positions and also between local units of government and the private sector. The budget presented tonight shows a year-end surplus. The surplus is preliminary and based on year-end audit adjustments still needing to be made. There is also operating cash on hand, and because there is, for the second year in a row, anticipation loans or lines of credit are not required. This was not the case in recent previous years. We are retiring debt at a positive rate. In the next 4 years, by 2025, the village's non-enterprise fund debt will be 64% less than it is today. We have completed a street rehabilitation study, and will complete this fiscal year a TIP infrastructure study and a village-wide water and sewer infrastructure study. These studies will provide the village with a priority list regarding public works projects and target schedule for completion. The studies also provide a list of shovel-ready projects that are essential in obtaining immediately ready funding from our intergovernmental partners. Perfection has not always been achieved, but much good work has taken place. Much more still lays ahead. All that was accomplished was and is because of our team. Senior staff, Julie, Pat DePercio, Joe, who is back in the room, who just retired, Ed, Justin Street, our former fire chief, Rocco Campanella, Tim Niergarten, Scott, and Mike Sheedy, and Bob Long. Thank you for being true partners. Sometimes government work can make you feel thankless and requires extremely thick skin. You are, without a doubt, and in great part, the fond memories I will have of my work here. Mayor Bruno and trustees, thank you for the honor to serve. Nothing, and I sincerely mean nothing, happens at a staff level without direction from the board. The direction comes in many forms. You are the policymakers, we are the public administrators, we are the implementers. Codification of policy is creating law in what we locally call ordinances. Our job is to enforce those codes. Whether those codes are 20 years old, 2 years old, or 2 days old, staff's job is to enforce them. If the code's archaic, if it's draconian, if it's no longer useful to the community, we cannot repeal or amend. That falls on the elected body. We cannot repeal or amend, but we still have the obligation by oath to make sure we enforce the codes. Codes are for the health, safety, and welfare of the community until they no longer serve a purpose or the necessity is minimized. As staff continues to perform their assigned and required tasks, I have assured them that an elected body will continue to give them the tools and backing they need to complete their mission. To the residents of Winthrop Harbor, thank you for allowing me to be part of your hometown. I am and will remain humble. Mayor Bruno, trustees Marabella, Levin, Weiss, Target, McCarthy, and Whitmore, once again I extend my many thanks for allowing me to serve the village of Winthrop Harbor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Greg, I'd like to say something, but first I want to say, wow, when did you sleep? Greg Jackson first came to us in a consultant role as government liaison. In this role, he helped our small community become better recognized at the county, state, and federal levels of government. For approximately 2 years, Greg worked hard to ensure that the needs of our municipality and residents were better heard at all levels. The results were strong, with multiple grants and programs being awarded to Winthrop Harbor, with more in process. About 2 years into my first term as mayor, we hired Greg as a full-time village administrator. In this role, Greg continued the work he'd begun as a consultant and added the overall administration of our municipal government. Greg has worked tireless and closely with all department heads, the village board, employees, businesses, and residents for the betterment of Winthrop Harbor. This required attending countless board meetings, committee meetings, public meetings, and intergovernmental meetings with our elected officials. Each meeting required substantial preparation, and Greg's commitment to this village has never once let us down. I hope everyone will join me in expressing our sincere gratitude for all the work and dedication Greg Jackson has provided to Winthrop Harbor. Greg, you are leaving this village in a far better position than ever before, and you will be for sure missed. Thank you for your public service. You will always be a friend to me, and I will always miss your presence here at the Village Hall. Wishing you nothing but success in your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, yeah, Greg's leaving. We're putting out the information for posting the job for village administrator soon. And when Greg leaves, the end of the month, or 2nd of July, I think it is?
Yes.
I have appointed our village attorney as our interim village administrator until we do the search and potentially hire a full-time position for that. So just want to let everybody know that. So we move on to our next clerk's correspondence.
I have nothing.
have nothing.
Okay, new business committee reports. The first one is Administration and Community Development Committee. That committee is chaired by trustee Buddy Harvey, who's the chair, and trustee John Levin, who is on that committee as well. So I'll turn it over to trustee Buddy McCarthy. Buddy Harvey. Did I say McCarthy?
You did.
Okay, sorry. Trustee Buddy Hargett is the chair, and trustee John Levin is on there too. Trustee, I got it written right here.
Make motion to approve accounts payable warrant 2021-3 in the amount of $182,850.42.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All right, roll call please.
Hargit.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella. McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, make a motion to approve the adoption of fiscal year 21-22 budget.
Second.
Discussion on the budget?
We've had a lot of meetings on it.
Yes, we have. Roll call please.
Hargit.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella.
Mr. Mayor?
McCarthy.
Mr. Mayor, I have to make a change to the budget.
Oh, okay.
So before we approve, there's.
Under discussion, okay.
There's two lines in the budget that need to, my projection on line 3,500, and I will send a copy to the board, there's only two things I have to make adjustments on.
Okay.
The line grade proceeds of, line 3,500 on the budget will go from 150 to 300,000. We're expecting a significant, bump because of the American Rescue Plan.
Oh, okay.
So we've adjusted that.
That's a good change.
So, and then I've reflected, the additional, expenses for the Public Works Building, Holdridge, and HVAC system into the capital, budget, which is fund number 2.
Which will come in as grants and.
Yes, that's correct. So right now, we're looking with the budget with a projected surplus of $216,000. Some of that-
what?
$216,000.
Okay.
Some of that will end up offsetting, capital, leases and debt service, but we're limiting $216,000.
Okay. All right, so we need to make those, go ahead.
Yeah, well,
You-
amendments to include
Amendments.
those reflected in the approval.
And you did remind the department heads not to spend the money, right?
They don't know it's there except for Tim, and we're gonna stop that before he leaves.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, we need a second. Second, okay. All right, roll call.
Hargit.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 21-22 wage policy ordinance as presented.
Second.
Any question or any discussion on the wage policy?
And to waive first and second readings on that.
Yes.
And waive the first and second readings.
Okay,
Just a second.
all right. Nothing? Okay, roll call, please.
Hargit.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
Make a motion to approve for public posting fiscal year 21-22 appropriation ordinance as presented, waiving first and second reading.
There's no waiver on that one. This is
Just do it.
We're just posting.
Okay, we got a second. Any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on page 5 of the, appropriation,
Yes.
we added the line for capital improvements on the appropriation. So it's $1.2 million, which is again, most of it the grant money. So, I will make sure that's included in the posted copy.
Okay, great. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
All right, roll call, please.
Hargit.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, the next item on here is for discussion purposes only, but wanted to bring it here for some discussion, and that is the matter of food truck or amending Chapter 115 of the Municipal Food Code of Winthrop Harbor by adding a comprehensive regulation allowing food trucks. So this is one that we have talked about for a little while here, and by little, and last fall, I think is when this really came up, and had planned originally to bring an ordinance tonight to discuss, review, had been working with Greg, kind of researching how other communities handle food trucks, had started to, with Attorney Long, get kind of pen to paper to have that ordinance. And as we discussed it, there were a couple of reasons that kind of led to saying, let's just bring it as a discussion item tonight. I will say the demand for food trucks has been minimal. In the 6 years that I've been on the board, we've had 2 requests, and both came last year during COVID. Outside of events, larger events, those are the only requests that I'm aware of. We do know, so we get reports that are called leakage reports. So it shows spending of our residents and where credit cards registered here being spent, right? So we can look at those reports and know people are eating out a lot, and they're eating out outside of Winthrop Harbor, right? So we know that there is demand for food that's being spent elsewhere. When we did a survey of our residents a handful of years ago, the feedback that came back of what are you looking for tended to be higher end, right? It's sit-down restaurants, brick and mortar. Food truck wasn't on the radar, but I still think wanting to be a tourist destination, food trucks fit that niche, right? There is a place for food trucks in our community, and so this is not a killing of this ordinance. It's saying, I think we need to talk about this a little more. I do think we'll get there. There's really a few reasons for holding. One is the mayor and Administrator Jackson did somewhat of a listening tour, talking to our restaurant owners about how are they doing, right? Is this the right time to introduce competition? Both of them came back to me and said, our businesses are struggling, right? And we want to make sure that we're listening and trying to support them the best we can. And I don't know that this is the right time to just say food trucks are allowed here by right anywhere. And so that was a big part of it. There's also, as we started looking at the ordinance, there are still several decision points to look at and make. This is definitely, some ordinances you look at, and I feel like you could go to any community and you lift it off the books, and it looks the same no matter what community you're looking at, just the name at the top of the city is different. Food trucks, when we looked at communities, it's not that case, right? I mean, you have dramatic variance in fees, in where they're allowed. Is it, within a certain proximity of brick and mortar? Is it only in certain zoning types? Right? There are a lot of discussions of things still that we want to bring here and have, talk to Trustee Levin, probably at a committee meeting for our Administration and Community Development Committee to work through a number of these issues still to make sure that whatever we do bring forward as a final product matches who we want to be as a community. The final part of it is the fact that our existing process allows for food trucks, right? I've had people reach out to me saying, why have we banned food trucks? And we have never had a ban on food trucks. They are allowed under special event permits. In fact, this past weekend, we had a food truck operating on the lakefront at the yacht club. They came, they applied for a special event permit for an open house. They had the food truck vendor contact the village, get an iterant food license. I asked Greg, just out of curiosity, I said, hey, how long did that process take? And it was 1 hour and 47 minutes. From the time they said, this is what we want to do, we're having this special event, this open house, this membership drive, to the iterant food license and the special event permit being issued. So we have a process today that allows for food trucks in those special events. They're just not allowed by right every day, anywhere in the community. And so that provides for opportunities. In fact, one of the requests that came last year actually was for a special event. It was for an NFL playoff event at one of our businesses. So there are still opportunities for food trucks to have a place today through our special events process. So that's the discussion. That's kind of where we're at when it comes to this. We've been talking about bringing this forward. Like I said, I had anticipated having that ordinance for this meeting, but the more we dug into it, I think there still are more things to discuss, but more than that, listening to our brick and mortar restaurants. I think, they've put heavy investment into our community, and I think we want to listen to that and allow some time to recover from this pandemic before potentially adding new competition.
Very well said.
Other thoughts, comments?
What does the fees look like if we were to move forward?
So we had not established that yet. When we looked at other communities, there were some that would go by event or by day that you're there, anywhere from $25 to $100 per day that you're on site. We saw other communities that were 200 to 300 tended to be the most typical, all the way up to 1,000 a year. And so we had not set that fee schedule yet. I think that's something when we have our committee meeting, that's one of those things we need to finish working.
Do you have any numbers on like the itinerancy of food trucks and where they're at? So how far from a certain radius, you know, do they go, you know, in there? So, you know, are there some that really stay within a close area and then end up being almost like brick and mortar, which is a threat to our, you know, they get the benefit of being in one location, but without the overhead fees, or are they traveling a lot more? Do we know?
No, I think for our market, it's an unknown right now. If one, you know, if one of the park can set up at the community center on 7th Street, or if it's going to be more event-driven, partnering with other businesses. So,
And I think as Trustee Hargan clearly stated, the complexities with these food truck ordinances. You know, you can go to a Gurney where you have all these restaurants, and a food truck doesn't necessarily have that much of an impact. But when you've got 12 restaurants in a small community such as Winthrop Harbor, the impact can be felt more. So I think it's just what's strategic, how do you do it, what days, what times, what, you know, if that's going to go. I think one of the things we heard over and over again during our listening tour was very clear that we pay property taxes, we pay insurance, we've hired staff, you know, when they went through all the expenses that are with a brick and mortar and during the pandemic, and it was pretty much a lot of it during the pandemic discussion too, that, or immediately post-pandemic, excuse me, that the concern was we're getting on our feet. One business told us they lost $400,000 in sales in one specific area last year, and that business has been here for a time. So, I mean, that's kind of the scary part when you're looking into the eyes of a family business owner and the potential of that business being you know, suffering because of a decision we've got. I would certainly, you know, with me not being here, but it's going to have to be well thought out, and just so not to compromise the people who dedicated their lives and their businesses to Winthrop Harbor.
And at the end of the day, the board is going to have to make a decision on this, right? I think in the near future, we'll revisit this. I don't know that our restaurants are ever going to come to us and say, you know, I feel like we're just missing competition. Right? Please bring food trucks in. Right? I don't think that is going to happen. So at some point, we may have to just say, okay, there's been time to recover from the pandemic. Now we think it's a fit, and this is what we think it should look like. This is what, you know, kind of complements the existing structure. But yeah, after hearing some of that feedback and just looking at the fact that through event permits, food trucks are allowed, have been allowed, I think that that should suffice for this year, and then we revisit this, keep working through it in committee to try and potentially roll something out for next year.
A town like Gurnee that you mentioned too, those restaurants that are there, they have the people that live there, they have the people that come there specifically for those restaurants, they have the people that work there during the day, attend those restaurants, they have the people who drive through and attend those. And I feel, we don't have the hard data, but anecdotally, and I think it's a pretty good feeling that a lot of our local businesses are supported specifically by the people who live here, who want to shop local, who want to support those businesses, and that's, you know, a good portion of what keeps them alive, and especially during the last year. You know, so that's one other concern is that if you bring in other businesses, and then people say, well, oh, I'm shopping local, I'm going to go to this food truck, is that diverting from these other businesses that they've been supporting that we don't want to see tank, because it's not the same as some of these other communities and the restaurants and where their customer base is.
Yeah, except bringing food trucks, large events down to our marina is going to drive people from out of town into Winthrop Harbor.
So events are still completely eligible, right? Special event permit is $25, an iterant food license is $100, right? So that's the approach that the yacht club took over the weekend. Like I said, that was passed very quickly and approved. So that still is allowable. And I would encourage, if anyone has ideas for events for any part of town, you know, bring them and let's try to help move them forward.
A piece of information that the board's trustee Hargan, I think, asked me for, and then the mayor did as well, and I may have had a conversation on a request by Trustee McCarthy as well. is that when we turn around and we looked at data to talk about in-town activity as it relates to activities into the marina, we're not getting the traffic necessarily back out into the community. It's pretty much a destination where they're going straight to the marina and not necessarily always coming out and visiting our businesses. And the only reason I bring that up is because whatever goes forward down in that marina, the body and staff should develop some kind of strategy to find somebody to, or find a way to attract the businesses back out here. You know, so they have a reason to come back into the community and find out, you know, some of the things we've got going on in the park. It's just, we don't want to think in a vacuum and just put, you know, have people go down there. We want to find a way that they can get back to us. And when you look at the different events that have been down there, and you go back and look at sales tax and try to target the months that you can, and it's a difficult task because of the way it's collected and reported. But there's nothing jumping off a page right now that says we're getting that kind of traffic, which we hope to get. We hope that the activities grow at the marina and we're able to bring those businesses or bring that activity back out into the community. I think that would be great.
And that's been, and not just the marina, I mean, when we think about the lakefront as a whole, right? I mean, the beach was one that, you know, we advocated for a long time to get that cleaned up. It finally is. It's hopping down there. But converting someone from a visitor to our community to a customer in our community and take that tax burden off of our residents is the challenge to solve. So that's where we're at. We will look at calendars, try and get a committee meeting scheduled, and keep working through that. More to come.
Thank you, buddy.
And last item on my section is make a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second. All right. Any discussion on the treasurer's report? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we move on to Public Safety Committee. I'll try this again. Public Safety Committee, Police and Fire, composed of Trustee Dana McCarthy, the chair, and Trustee Fritz Weiss. I'll turn it over to Dana.
Make a motion to waive first and second reading and approve as written an ordinance declaring personal property surplus and authorizing the sale thereof. Second.
All right, any discussion on that?
And as you can see, it's just 3 vehicles that are no longer.
Mr. Mayor, Trustee Mirabella approached me at the beginning of the meeting. The ordinance was introduced, the disposal resolution was introduced with the agenda package on Friday. The Public Works Department hadn't seen it before it was posted. Public Works is asking that we may take a second look at the 2015 pickup truck, that they may have use for it rather than us dispose it. The issue there is that we've put I have put a requirement onto the police department to reduce their fleet. And if we're going to turn around and look at buying new vehicles, that we should find a way to get rid of vehicles that we're not using. I think, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, your current one's a 2001?
We got the 2001 and the 2003 S10 pickup, and then the Ford F-150.
We may
Both of them
find,
are falling apart.
we may find that from a financial standpoint, Mr. Mayor, that we're able to, I want to sit back and look, I want to go back and look at numbers and find out what makes more sense, what the life on these vehicles are in Tim's operation, how much it would cost us to buy whatever we're going to buy, how much we get on Blue Book. So I would ask the board if they would approve the ordinance or the resolution this evening, allowing us to have a stay on that pickup truck until we can make a decision on it. If it makes sense to move forward, then we'll move forward with it.
Okay. Very good.
Bob, does that work?
Yeah, actually, it authorizes, it doesn't require.
Perfect.
All right. So we got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Trustee McCarthy. We move on to Public Works and Parks Committee. Public Works and Parks is made up of Trustee Mirabella, Chair, and Trustee Alana Whitmore. I'll turn it over to Trustee Robert Mirabella.
Make a motion for the request approval to renew the annual contract agreement with Johnson Landscaping for fiscal year 21-22.
Second.
So, having a discussion with Scott this It's a local guy too, but he hasn't raised his prices in 4 years. So it's already budgeted. I feel like it's a good move.
Which is amazing. He hasn't raised his prices. All right. Any other discussion on that? Okay, roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore.
Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to public comments. Just ask you if you would like to address the board, come up to the podium and state your name and I guess your address. Hi, Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. My name is Mark Stevens. I'm the Marina Manager at North Point Marina, 701 North Point Drive, Winthrop Park, Illinois. First, I'd like to congratulate Chief Moon on your appointment. And Chief Campanilla's not here, so I wanted to congratulate him on his appointment last month. We at North Point Marina look forward to continued cooperative working relationship with both your departments. Matter of fact, it was very nice to see the fire department's crew down at the marina today, working with the Antioch Fire Department boat. Where should I send the invoice for the long tramp fee? Just kidding.
Always a comedian.
Well, so as many of you know, I'm a retired U.S. Coast Guard officer, over 30 years of service. I was the commanding officer of both the Wilmette Harbor Station and the Chicago Rescue Station. So I know how important having your assets fully ready for a quick response on the water. Seconds may mean the difference between life and death. With knowing that and learning what may be a possibility that the Winthrop Harbor Fire Department receives a boat of their own from the Round Lake Beach Fire Department, we believe the perfect location to store your boat, if you acquire one, is in a slip ready for action at North Point Marina. If this does develop into reality, West Trek Marinas would request a formal request in writing for our consideration if you so choose to store the boat in a slip at North Point Marina. Additionally, if at any point you have any questions, the department has any questions, needs assistance with the rescue boat, techniques, outfitting, training, myself, also Dave Courageous, the assistant manager. He's a 8-year veteran of the Coast Guard. So we'd be happy to lend our expertise to help if that so happens. Again, Chief, congratulations.
Thank you, Mark. That's it. All right, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Hello, Richard.
Hi, Mayor. Rich Cohn, 1112 Sheridan Road, representing VFW. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for changing the code so we can have an outside area. Thank you very much. On July 24th is when we're going to do the 9/11 memorial, finish it up and get it placed. So I need to put that out, and we're going to try to get as many people there as we can for that, because that's going to bring a lot of people to this town, because it's the only piece that's going to be that'll be in the state of Illinois. And this all came about, most of you know why it all came about, is because of the other piece that was already here, memorial. So we're pushing to get that, so thank you.
July 24th?
July
What day of the week is
24th,
that,
yeah.
Saturday?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be on a Saturday. We're looking between 11 and 12. We don't have the time down yet.
Okay, great. Thank you, Richard. Hello.
Hi, I'm Karen Russell, and you know me, you know what a nice, wonderful person I am. I want to go back to the whole permit thing. I don't want to make a big deal out of this. However, you keep referring to West Rec the same as all the other businesses as far as permitting. But there's some differences there. Do you have another business that pays 4% of their revenue? No, you don't. Right off the top, they pay 4%. They also provide their own security, their own, shovel their own streets. The other businesses that you're comparing apples and oranges here, when you said it's not fair that the other businesses have to get permits, and they don't. My understanding is that the state, the last couple of things that were done, the state authorized them to do it, so they did it. The state owns the land. I understand the municipality part. However, if you're going to claim municipality, shouldn't you also then be maintaining? You're not. So you're putting no money in, but you want to take money out. And I think that's where the issue is. And once again, and we went through this before West Rec first started, everybody needs to sit down and talk about this. To me, it's always some kind of argument. This one wants this, that one wants that. Nobody wants to budge. It's a business. Their business, your business. And in business, you sit down and you compromise. And I don't see that. I mean, everything has to be, you go to legal, and it doesn't need to be that way. The bottom line with West Rec is they have doubled the amount of slips that are rented. You are getting money, 4% on each of those slips. What did you get before West Rec? 0. If they fill all those slips, 1,400 slips, if they fill those, 4% is $184,800 a season. Do you have another business doing that? So why are we nickel and diming? I mean, if they do something on that land and there's liability, it isn't your liability, it's the state's liability, which often is why you get permits, because you want to stop the liability. It wouldn't be your liability, it would be the state's liability. The state approves it, they do it, it blows up, the state is liable. So, and as far as and Greg, I think you said that the businesses, I've also spoken with the businesses, and you're absolutely right, that right now, you're not getting a lot of people in, but that's because we've got nothing to come to. And West Rec is trying, they wanted that farmer's market. You bring in people to the farmer's market, they then get hungry. They're not going to leave town. But, and as far as other businesses, I've had people come to me and be like, I will never have business in Winthrop Harbor, because this is what happens each and every time. And I don't want to cause a big ordeal, but the two places that got hurt are brick and mortar buildings, businesses in this town. They're the two people that got hurt in this. Over permit, for a sign. What does that say to our businesses? Any questions?
Thank you, Karen. Oh, Frank.
How are you guys? I don't know, right? There's a traffic sound there. I have a couple of feelings on this, and I know kind of it's going to come out as maybe sour grapes or stuff like this. I want to start out by saying, first of all, I have not been affected $10 by anything that the marina has done. I personally think that everything that they have done has brought more people down into the marina. And I think that bringing people down into the marina has also helped the traffic. It's helped Skiffle Buds, and I think it has helped Winthrop Harbor. I have zero problem with that. What I do have a problem with is that every single thing that we do, we have to get a permit. If I have to get a permit for putting in a sign or putting in a sink or putting in anything else, then you have to get a permit. Okay? That's all. That's all we're asking. If my if my restaurant has to be inspected 2 or 3 times every year by the health department, then anybody that is bringing food into our town should also be inspected by the health department. Inspections aren't just for safety. Inspections, you pay a fee for our inspectors. They have, you're supposed to be, our community is counting on you people to make everything fair and unique for everybody, okay? And take out of the equation the fact that you have to pay all these fines, all these fees every year for your business, because that's part of business, okay? But when you have someone going to pull up a pickup truck with a trailer behind it, okay, are they going to leave? Do they come up and say, here, Winthrop Harbor, I sold $2,000 worth of tacos today. Here's your money. I don't think so. Okay? And you want to talk about West Trek pays a lot of money to the village of Winthrop Harbor through taxes or whatever deal they have. So does Skipper Buzz, and so does the Tropics. Okay? I'm sure if you look in under your tax-paying basis, I'm sure we're probably up there pretty well. Okay? So if everything is being even, okay, if you want to allow food trucks, again, zero problem with you allowing a food truck to come in here. Let that food truck go out, pay a fee every time he comes in. You had it, like you said, on Sunday, I looked across and there it was. I couldn't been more busy this weekend. So I look across and I see the yacht club doing well, and they're doing well. God bless. Let's all do well, okay? But let's all start from the same thing. You made an excellent case. I was sitting back there, and the most impressive thing I said was, everyone has to be, if you're going to have a society, the society has to be fair for everybody, okay? If you take 100 people and you take the friendship out of the equation, people that are friends with this one and this one and this one, or people that are customers of this one and this one and this one, if you took the whole interview and brought it to a separate town and said, this is what we think, you'll find that 99 out of 100 people will agree with exactly what you guys said here tonight. Everything has to be, otherwise there is no society. So.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. How you doing, folks?
Hey.
I'm a resident of Winthrop Harbor. Moved here 26 years ago.
What's your name?
Great place.
What's your name?
Jim Marks.
Okay.
Live right up the road off of Lewis Avenue.
Okay. Thank you, John.
I retired, and I picked myself up a smoker, food truck, as you would call it, I would guess. But I've had the opportunities to cook down here at the marina for people, for private parties in the neighborhoods. You probably know some of these people I've cooked for. And Frank, I really appreciate what you said. It's very awesome of you saying how good it is for everybody to be down. And it is true. We bring people down to the marina, from the Tropics, to Mark doing what he does, what Kyle does, and it's good for the community. And all these other people out here with the harbor that do have restaurants, brick and mortar, they have the same opportunity we do to come down here if they just develop a system to work with the marina to sell their food. That would help them all out tremendously. So I hope we can all get this straightened out, because I do have a food service license. I have a restaurant license. I am certified through the state. I do get a permit every time I cook from Lake County Health Department. I get inspected every time I cook by George. And you guys all know who he is. Comes on all the time. Tells me I do a great job. So all I want to do is get back to cooking. I don't want to get back to arguing or do anything else. Let us get back to cooking until you guys figure out what you're going to do with us. So we have opportunities too, because I retired to do this. My daughters get married. I have to pay for a wedding. You know, I don't have no spending money. You know, we need to get this going somehow or another, sooner than later. Like, you know, by the 4th of July would be nice. All these opportunities we got going here, I've missed out on I don't know how many already. But I know that I've stayed working for a living. But I want to be down here and I want to serve the community in Winthrop Harbor because they're all great people. every one of you guys. And we need this down here. If you're gonna bring people through here, instead of them passing through going to Kenosha and seeing what they have, what Waukegan has, what Racine has, we can have the same thing here if we just put our heads together and work together. And everybody can help us make a lot of money together. That's all I have to say. Please, let me get back to cooking and tell me what I need to do that. Somebody give me some kind of paperwork or whatever it has to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike Ryan, I live at 735 Landon Avenue. We're in one of those houses that used to be down to lake. I'm retired now, but before I retired, I worked in the construction industry. I'm a retired carpenter. And we had quite a bit of safety training. And we also had to be trained by our, corporate HR people. And one of the things that was told to me on one of our job sites by our HR head was, perception is now the reality. Nothing is more true than what we got going on right now. What happened down at the marina, it could have been avoided by everyone. I mean, I think that's pretty simple to say. There was a mistake made. Was the right way to correct that mistake to say tear everything down until we do this? In my industry, quite often an architect didn't quite do it right. And we built something, and we did as-built drawings, and it was approved by the local municipality. Their building department came out, looked at it and said, okay, that's up to code. Could we have done that here? I don't know, but there's that possibility. Again, perception. But now what we have is, I'll bet there's more people here than you've seen in forever. I mean, quite honestly. Why? Because of that perception. Because you did somebody wrong. Or that's the perception. That's not what we need. And we talk about, if people go to these food trucks, they won't go to the other businesses in town. Well, what businesses are here in town? One of you spoke about brick and mortar in Gurnee. Well, where are a lot of those? There were Gurnee Mills is, where their Great America is, where there's other businesses. We don't have that here, unfortunately. And quite honestly, we don't have the room to put them. So we're not going to ever have that. Highly unlikely. But, you know, we talk about a food truck because it's going to put a dent in some other restaurant business. I recently went to visit my son in Cary, Maine. It's a town just across the border from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Not much more population than this. And 2 nights a week they have a food truck. It's Chick-fil-A actually. And it's a gold mine for them. But it's not a trailer on the back of somebody's pickup truck, no disrespect to any of those businesses, but it looks like an RV that's been converted into a kitchen. Those are the kind of food trucks that, you know, maybe we look at. And again, no disrespect to anybody's business. Again, perception. How much is that license going to cost? When it becomes cost prohibitive, we wind up with nothing. And was that positive for us? Now with, and again, sometimes rumor becomes the truth. Now with the rumor that a license is going to cost $1,000, what business is going to say, let me roll the bones on that? It's not possible. And again, we'll lose out. You know, there has to be some kind of compromise here where we look together and say, that was a mistake. On both parts. We both made a mistake. We did. But was there an easier solution than for both parties to dig our heels in the sand and say, this is the way it's going to go. It's my way or the highway. And we got to stop doing that. Because at that rate, no business is going to want to come. You know, again, perception. Let's do a better job of that. We're all more capable. We all fail. It's not how many times you fail, it's how many times you get up. Let's get up one more time. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask a question? Because because I assume, talking in reference to the stage, to tear it down, was our response to that to tell them to tear it down?
No, I can't speak 100% for Pat, but I think what we did was we red tagged it.
Yeah.
Because a permit wasn't pulled, and then a late permit would have to be filed.
Right.
And then we would go out, take the late permit file, and then inspect. You were part of that too, I think.
So I just want to clarify, because that's the perception that's given without saying that, we said tear it down. And again, like everything, there are processes for applying for permits, and there's processes if you have issues with the permits, or if you didn't do it and you want to, you know, make it right by getting it permitted. So you're saying it's red tag, and then the process of that is to apply and pay the late fee. Obviously then,
It would
it
have to
still
go-
has to go through inspection.
That's correct.
Still has to be up to code.
That's correct.
But I just want to address the issue of saying that we said to tear it down.
Is there a cost difference? I mean, is there, if you,
Yes.
once you, is it prohibitive? I mean, is there a big difference between I got the permit before I did it and I got the permit after?
And I've got to tell you, there's one, and it may have been this one, and maybe Mark or somebody, but it was 50, and then it would have been 100 if the permit
Yeah.
wasn't pulled.
Okay,
I think,
that's all I'm
yeah, I
asking.
think without having it in front of me, that's what I.
yeah, it's not like $1,000 now because you
No.
didn't do that.
And Greg, to be clear, also, no building permits and no special event permits have been denied throughout this process.
We haven't had a special event permit come to us.
One.
Well, one, and that was a yacht club.
Yeah. And again, that process is there for food trucks, for the special events.
Yeah, Kyle, 834 Roberts. So yeah, the permit after the fact, for us it was double. The only thing we've ever not pulled a permit on was our sign at the lakefront, and that was because the state told us we didn't have to. So I just want to come up here and clarify to everybody that thanks for getting away with stuff without a permit. I have a license. I got a permit on my new sign on Sheridan. I want to do things by the book. We're being told not to from the state. So I'm a middleman here. You guys need to clear that up. I talked to you and we had a great conversation in March with my first sign. We talked for like an hour. And that was the last time we talked about food trucks. Like, look, man, we're working on it. We'll get Sheridan Road going. And until then, do things that, I'm not saying you know all the ordinances.
No, but then the pandemic hit.
Right. And you're like, just have them at the lakefront. I'm like, I can have food trucks at the lakefront. And at that time, not saying you knew the entire rules, so I'm not throwing you under the bus here, but you were like, yeah, you can have them at the lakefront. You did all last year, everything was fine. So there's okay, last year I'm allowed to have food trucks. Many of you have been there when there's food trucks there. I'm not hiding anything. When I gave you my packet to have a beer garden on there, it said food trucks in black and white. You guys knew what I was doing. So now is 2021, when I'm trying to recover from a pandemic, just like a lot of businesses are, is when you're cutting me down and saying, oh, no more food trucks because we want to, fight with the state. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong, but to sit there and say that Harbor Brewing is doing something bad on purpose is not the case. We've gotten all our licenses through you. Pat's not here, but believe me, I had my plumbing inspected and stamped by an architect last year for the beer garden. We've gotten all our permits. The state gave us approval, and we put up a sign. And then immediately, I didn't even get the letter from Greg Jackson in the mail until I got an email from Attorney Long's letter, which I don't know why it was sent to me. I immediately text you back and say, hey, how fast did I get that after the fact permit?
It was the same day.
Immediately. Let's correct this. I'm not here to, it was $100, like you said. It was 50 and then it was 100 because it was after the fact. I dug a hole, you looked at it, we're good. But me and Cindy over here is trying to open a beach cafe, and they're stuck in the middle of this argument between the state and you guys, and it's hurting. Cindy wants to go to work. How much money do you spend on that equipment down there?
$4,000.
It's sitting there. Over a sink? Okay, come look at the sink. Make sure it's good. Let Cindy get open. I feel like there's more harm than good. We all want to follow the rules. No one here doesn't want to follow the rules. I was told by the state. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a village administrator. I assume the state's telling me correct information. If it's wrong, I corrected it immediately. So Kyle's not going around sneaking in under non-permitted activities. Everything we've done has been permitted. Our electric, our plumbing, our sign now, at the second one. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
So who at the state is saying nothing?
We don't know. We don't get paperwork from the state. They tell, it's just like Kyle said, the state told us to do this. This is how it's related
I
back.
can show you an email that I received to Greg Jackson from Pam saying that the state had exclusive authority to permit all activities and permitting rights on state property. Now that could be wrong.
And she also gave us the letter that, or their regulations that say that you're supposed, item 13 in particular says all local ordinances and regulations have to be followed. The way in which you get a resolution to that is to write a letter to her and lay out the village's position, which she hasn't responded to.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm telling you as a non-attorney.
I'm not saying you're wrong either.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain how the process is working.
Okay.
If she is going to simply say, starting from a factual inaccuracy, that isn't part of the village, or that we somehow surreptitiously and in the middle of the night annexed the property, if she's going to take that kind of a position without investigating the facts, we have to lay out what our position is. Then she has the opportunity, like everybody else does, to respond to that. I haven't heard back from Ms. Gray in 3 weeks. I haven't heard from the Attorney General. I haven't heard from counsel at IDNR. And I've spoken with all these people on many occasions.
He asked where I heard it from, and that's all I was responding. I'm not saying you're right or wrong.
No, all I'm getting at is that's how the process works, and we haven't gotten that response. So all we can do, because we are charged under the state plumbing code in particular, which is designed for an issue like a sink to make sure that there isn't any backflow and there isn't a health crisis, a health issue presented. The plumbing code doesn't have any exemption for state facilities. It still has to be inspected. But we don't get inspection reports. We don't get told anything about this until one of you folks comes and says, well, the state told us we don't have to do it. And it isn't even presented that way. It's the state says we don't do it, don't do it. That's where we're having a problem. If they said you don't have to, and here's the reason why, and here's some paperwork, have them contact us if there's an issue, we're happy to do that. And in fact, we had those discussions on any number of occasions when the marina was being operated by Dave Southard, who was a state employee. We had that exact conversation on a number of occasions, and we worked very cooperatively with him throughout all those years. But the issue is, we put out something. It wasn't designed to try to spark litigation or create some kind of big fight. It was expected to create a set of facts and a legal position. It's the same legal argument you would make anywhere, any other lawyer would make, and I'm waiting for a response. We haven't gotten one. So all we can assume, frankly, is that on the basis of the limited information that's been given back to us, and in fact, the law itself, I followed all the statutes and laid it out for them, clearly, dispassionately. I'm not angry at anybody, but I wanted to lay out what our position was, and I haven't heard back. So I believe that I was right from the beginning. If I'm wrong, they'll tell me. So in the meantime, we have done what we need to do to try to get an answer to the very questions that you're talking about by staying. We started this, I'll tell you, we started this 20 years ago. The first time we had a discussion with the state of Illinois was involving contributions to the fire department, because our people were being called down there at an exceptionally busy period of time, long before you were in business, and we wanted to know if they would think about contributing toward the overhead of maintaining the facility necessary to provide life-saving services down there. And I tell you, we wrote a letter and asked, and I heard back from the Attorney General and the counsel from IDNR within a matter of 3 days. That was about a fax letter. We didn't even have email back then.
Was that pre-pandemic?
20 years ago? Yeah, it was. It was, but they responded in that period of time, and they pointed out, here's a regulation that says this, this, and this. There's no threat of a lawsuit, but here's a regulation. There isn't such a regulation to be found, at least not that I can locate, in the regulations of the park or the Capital Development Board or any of these other things. It's not there. If it is, they can point it out to me, and I'll be happy to take a look at it and advise the board appropriately. But in the meantime, we are charged with statutory responsibility to go in there and make sure that the things like plumbing is right, electrical is right, gas is right. You know, it was only a year and a half ago, you may recall, when Anastasia's out in Antioch, which had an outdoor gas fireplace blow up on it. That one happened to even have been inspected, and it still blew up. These are somewhat dangerous pieces of equipment. And that's a reason why you have the inspection. It isn't perfect, but it certainly can point out that there's a lot of problems that may arise, and an inspector may see things that the installer and the contractor may not see themselves. That's the reason for it. And to make one last thing clear, despite, you know, a $100 permit may sound like a lot, it's not. It doesn't cover our costs. That's about what it costs us to go in there, and maybe a little less than what it costs to actually maintain that department and provide that service. And it's a service that's provided to the entire community. So when we provide an inspector to go down there and look at that, we're not harassing you. We're trying to make sure that everything is in fact okay, and that there's not going to be some backflow that's going to come up and, you know, create a health crisis for somebody, that the electrical isn't going to electrocute someone, that the deck isn't going to get picked up and blown by a tornado and a windstorm like happened down in Indianapolis at the State Fair a few years ago, that the gas doesn't explode. That's what these things are for. They're not there for any other purpose. They're not just doing it for fun and to try to make a buck, because that's not what our inspectors do. We don't make money off of it.
No one said they were.
No,
I'm just answering.
No, that has been in fact said here sometimes.
I was talking to Trustee McCarthy when he asked how we were getting these emails and who say what say. We have an email. That's it. Your letter, right or wrong, again, you probably know more about it than I do, was after these items, specifically my sign. My sign was the only thing I didn't pull a permit for. I immediately got an after the fact one when I found out I was wrong. He asked, Mark wants to point out that he tore his sign down so I could have my sign. So thank you, Mark. But it was immediately rectified. So there you go. There is an email out there. I can share it with you if you'd like. But that was prior to his. He responded as he did. But that doesn't, I'm just explaining why we did this. We didn't do it just to skate a permit. We did it because we were told we didn't need one. That's all.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, quick, I can say go ahead, you know, but you didn't forget. I don't know Mr. Wenzel, and I don't know people at Sweet Stop, that doesn't matter to me. Now we know what had to be done. If all this stuff is already installed and it's just sitting there because we can't do anything, what do we gotta do? Because they're losing business.
They just pulled the permit.
Go tomorrow and inspect it and get it done. It's done, then.
No, they just pulled, Mark, you just pulled the permit on it, right?
Yeah, there's, Pat's got some other questions about bathrooms.
Yeah, I mean, we're losing time, money, you know, no business can afford to coming out of this. You know, it needs to be done, not today, but yesterday. You know, and sometimes expedience, and again, it goes right back to the perception.
It takes two sides
Again,
to reach an agreement.
It certainly does. I couldn't agree with you more. You're 100% correct. But sometimes we're all entitled to our own opinions. But what we're not entitled to is our own facts. And sometimes we think we're right, and we're just not going to back down from it. Like right now, I know for sure I'm right. Well, I think your time is up. That's your opinion. But, you know, we got to get this done. You know, again, I don't know any of those owners involved, but it's something that we need to do. Perception.
And so a permit has been pulled now, so they're working through
It's,
that.
what I'll do is I will check with, I'll check with CSTAD.
I have a question for, Mr. Long. You said that you had, sent off a letter to the state. What are you doing to follow up when you do not get a response?
No, what the letter said was, is our position that property has been in the village of Winthrop Harbor since the village was incorporated. In 1901, that property was part of the original Winthrop Harbor, and we have exercised jurisdiction over that property for that entire period of time, 120 years. Ms. Gray claimed that we had, that this property wasn't in the village. I wanted to make sure that it said, that she understood that it has been from time, since we began, long before any of us were alive. And that as a result of that, we have the responsibility for issuing the permits. Period. If she has, and I opened the door back in and said, if you had something, you want to discuss it, go ahead and do it. But our position is we enforce the permits. It's a statement of position.
And the conflict between the state and the village is causing our business people issues. It's not, it's impacting them.
No, the problem is, in my perspective, what it sounds like is that somebody at the state is telling people don't get permits, and that's wrong.
And that's what I'm saying, but it's putting our business, I understand
you're
that, but
attacking the
it's,
businesses
you're
because that
attacking
person
the
told you.
businesses when the issue is the state.
No, well, understand, it's the state that's interfering in the business process, in the building permit
Well,
process.
take it up with the state, don't
I
punish
am.
us.
We're trying to.
But we're not punishing, just to be clear, you say we're attacking businesses, we're following the same codes and ordinances that we've followed for decades, doing what we understand and have, there's plenty of precedence, even in the marina, to continue to do. So we're not attacking anyone, we're holding everyone to the same standard that we've always held them to, and asking our staff to do that. I know, I understand what you're saying, but
If the community had the perception that that was going on, we wouldn't all be here.
I feel that the community has that perception because they haven't come to me and asked about it. That's my opinion. I don't know if they've emailed other board members about that to explain, because I could have clarified that to you, but as you've seen, people have to come to meetings for that. I can't control what perceptions are spread on social media and things like that, and that's unfortunate. And the fact is, I have tried. I've been on here 8 years, and I used to try to answer things, and all it would do is turn around into something else where everything was questioned, and then, you know, people were attacking each other, people were being nasty to each other. So I feel the best way the government works is for people to email and to call their trustees and ask them so they can understand what both sides of the situation are.
Thank you.
Mark has pulled the permits he needs. Kyle has pulled the permits that he needs. Any events that anyone wants to have there or elsewhere in the village, $25 special event permit.
What's
right?
considered a special event?
What's that?
What's considered a special event?
It's kind of, the ordinance, I don't have it up for the exact language, but it's something you would promote outside of your normal business operation, right? So it's not just it's Wednesday, it feels special, but, you know, in the case of the yacht club, right, they just had their event this weekend. They said, we're opening our doors to non-members, we're doing a membership drive, it's going to be different than our normal operation, we want to do a special event, have this food truck, right? So it's something different than your normal operation where you would be expecting more people than is typical, and maybe advertised differently than a normal operation.
I think Fourth of July would be the perfect thing, like you said, that would be the perfect opportunity because you're celebrating something and you could just do it and
Man, we celebrate every weekend.
I know.
Come on, you know.
Well, you also said that food trucks would be competition for brick and mortar. But if I want to open a brick and mortar, isn't that competition too?
Right, I mean, that is one where it's very true. I think food trucks can complement our existing businesses really well. Right, they fill a niche.
I'd like to comment on that a little bit too.
Could we
I do-
Come on up here.
Can we observe some formality here, have names and such for our records, please? Thank you.
Cindy Pocklington, I own the Sweet Shop Bakery. So, I know you gentlemen, Mr. Jackson and Mayor Bruder were supposed to come see me, and I was ready to tell you that the businesses coming for Harbor Brewery, the Stone Crate and other businesses have been getting a lot of business. People make a day. They come to have dinner first, they come down to Harbor Brewery, listen to music, have a couple of drinks. So, people are wrong. They are getting money from it too. That's what I just wanted to verify, just clarify. Okay?
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for everybody for coming tonight.
Yeah.
You see faces.
Yeah.
It was very productive.
So we move on to unfinished business. Start down with trustee Whitmore.
Yes, so, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. It's great to see people coming out. Unfortunately, it's for something not exactly positive. I definitely hope that in the future, the very near future, we can work on things like signage for business. I know I've been trying to work on it for 2 years on and off, and we have a pandemic, but we definitely need to fix several different out-of-date ordinances that are prohibiting our businesses from moving forward and growing. I mean, I'm watching Waukegan grow, Zion grow, Kenosha obviously is blowing us out of the water, and I watch us take steps back and never forward. 2 years ago when I joined the board, I definitely made myself known that, I wanted to have a niche in this community, whether it's dog-friendly community, maybe tourism community, and I feel like you guys ran with it and turned it into like the anti-business community. And I have literally watched for 2 years, businesses have reached out to me multiple times of, sign ordinances and every other ordinance that we have, and again, they've been out of date, and I have pushed with Buddy and Greg and everyone else to see what we can do to move forward with them, to make them acceptable for our businesses. I mean, they can't even have a sandwich board with their specials on it. And we really need to see how we can grow instead of plateau at best.
Thank you, trustee Whitmore. Trustee Sakura.
I just want to, again, congratulate Chief Moan for his promotion. I'm very excited. I was very excited to hear about your selection. I know you bring a lot. You've done so much just to help us grow and develop over the last few years that you've been in as deputy chief, and look forward to continuing to do that and working with you. So thank you for sticking around and bringing all that you do to the village. And then I just want to speak for a few moments on Village Administrator Jackson. I think a lot of people don't understand just everything you've done. I've been on this board 8 years under 2 different administrations, and nothing against anyone in the previous administration, but I felt like Winthrop Harbor in a lot of ways was in a time bubble, the village left behind in a lot of ways. We didn't have great connections with other government agencies. We weren't looking to the future. The way we staffed, so many other things, and if anyone has questions, doesn't believe that we needed this, I'm happy to sit down for coffee with them any day and just tell all the things that Greg brought to this table. Just in short, for everything that he saved money for the village as well as acquired through grants and other funding. He's paid for his own position multiple times over, in my opinion. He's moved us in a great direction. I feel like we're actually a modern village and moving towards that, which, like I said, and maybe some people liked it that way, but I always felt that wasn't where we were going. So I just want to thank him for everything he's brought. And I've already told him how much I'll miss him being around with George Clooney looks over there. Just thank you for everything, and I don't have enough words, so, thank you. No, they're just mad that I got to say it first.
Ditto. Yeah, congratulations to Chief Moan. You've been with us for a couple of years now, and have already made us proud and served our community well. But look forward to more to come. Another thing, this is probably a procedural thing to maybe discuss with interim village administrator and the mayor, but we started recording these meetings a few years ago, and procedurally, now that we've gone to monthly meetings, that leaves a big gap of the video not being available. And I don't think there's a legal reason to not publish it sooner or wait for the next meeting. I think that was a procedural decision we had made, but it may be something we want to discuss at a future meeting of moving that timeline up. But just a procedural thing, we don't have to get into it now. But yeah, then Greg, we've talked a lot over these couple of years you've been here. I remember when the mayor first kind of brought the idea of village administrator. You've been on with us as a consultant, and adding staff is always something that we take very seriously. They're both because of public perception, you know, it's an administrator, and it sounds very esteemed, and as you get to know you, it's not. You know, adding a position like that, I remember thinking, is this the right time? Do we need this, right? And as much as I try and fight against we've never done this before, so why should we? You know, it was one where I think we've tried to look at change, and looking at your resume, I mean, it was clear that you were overqualified for this position, especially for a small town that we can afford to pay. But you came in immediately and gave your all to our community. Like Trustee McCarthy said, you know, modernized a lot of the things that we do, got us on the map with the other elected officials across all levels. I mean, that's really where you excel. Is in those relationships, and we saw that the fruits of that in all the grants that we've been able to get. But I've learned a lot from you, and I'm really going to miss working with you. And I think you proved the need, right? Having a village administrator is an asset to our community. All of us are part-time, right? I mean, and we don't have the skills and education for a very specialized role of running the day-to-day government. We're a representative position here, and so I just appreciate all the last couple of years working with you, and you know, wishing nothing but the best going forward. Thank you. And you can still reconsider, right? I mean, forget this guy.
Please. Hey, buddy, I got a question for you. You gave him a list of stuff that you wanted him to get. How many of those things did he not do?
Did he not? Yeah, no, he has delivered well. I meet with him often saying, hey, how about this, or send him links, have you seen this grant? And I still expect in these next couple of weeks, I mean, there is no coasting here. I want a few million more, you know, before he gets done, but, no, it has been,
He's accomplished everything.
He's done a great job.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Trustee Weiss.
Thank you. Congratulations to Chief Moan. Glad to have you on board. Got to know you before you even became a deputy chief, and matter of fact, I got to know him doing a safety seminar for churches after some of the churches were where they had shooters in the church, and he brought all these professionals and all these churches came together to understand the safety aspect of securing a church. And Greg, it's been a real pleasure. You know, coming from the corporate world, I saw a lot of the things that he did that I went through, and I had nightmares to see what he was doing. But you know, he brought us into the 21st century. I've been on the board 15 years on and off. I've been requested to come on this board, volunteered, and got reelected. And in that time, in the 2.5 years or 3 years even as a consultant, we have had more information that has come across our table that we ourselves could not do. The skill set that you have is beyond compare. I just really pray that if we get we will get another administrator, that they can hit the ground running like you did. With this pandemic, you saw that coming. You started taking the reins on that. You started securing the village. started reorganizing with the staff, and with the staff that came along, like you said, our staff is phenomenal. And the way they work as a team, and with Greg leading the team, it was just absolutely great. The amount of information that we received, and you know, it's the first time in my 15 years that we've gotten grant money from the state. That's all because of Greg and the people that he knows in Springfield. And Greg knew who to talk to, and he took the mayor and Pat DiPercio and other people down to Springfield and introduced all of our people to them, and they got to know who we are. Winthrop Harbor now is on the map with Springfield. Albeit, I understand your frustration, as we do with Springfield, because there's only 2 speeds that the state has, and that's slow and stop. And believe me, they're in a stop position because you would think they would respond to our letter. But I know that Greg pushes. He pushes, and he does that, and he does the job, and you've been absolutely phenomenal in what you've done for our village and securing the position where we're at. We are on the map with Springfield because of Greg. And the grants, I mean, millions of dollars. I've never seen that happen before in the 15 years I've been a trustee. So Greg, you're gonna be really missed. The shoes are gonna be hard to fill. And I will send you some of my bad pun jokes. Thank you, Greg.
Well said, Trustee White. Trustee Olivia.
Congratulations, Chief. Greg, I know, especially when we were brought in, I wasn't in favor, and we've discussed it, and looking forward, we've done a hell of a job for the village. You opened our eyes to a lot of things that a lot of people don't know that was going on. And I appreciate what you did for us, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Levin. Trustee Murphy.
Yeah, Chief Mona, I think a lot of people don't realize it, but some people do, but I think Chief Brumlett brought you in. Relationships are huge in what you do, and you have relationships throughout the police community, so that's huge for the village of Winthrop Harbor. It's a big asset with NIFAS and every other thing you do, and all the training you do, it's huge for Winthrop Harbor, so we're blessed to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, thanks a lot. I mean, you've educated me on a lot of stuff. I appreciate it. Gonna miss you. I think, I told him as a person, I'm glad he's moving on, but as a trustee, it's kind of sad, just because I think he had more to accomplish here. The rec board did meet. I missed it. Alana was there. They took notes. We're gonna be coming at you for some stuff for the rec board.
Thank you, Trustee. Yeah, Greg, bittersweet. I'm gonna miss you. I know we'll be in contact. You're always gonna be a friend. Pick your brain every now and then, if at all possible. But I'm gonna play chess sometime with you. I know you're supposed to be really good. I'm gonna see if I can beat you. So I'm gonna miss you. If we love you, and we're gonna miss you. We hope you're, do well wherever you're heading, so. Police Chief Ed Malone, I didn't know who your mom and dad were, now I do. So congratulations. You did an outstanding job in the interviews, as I told you when I offered you the position as police chief. I was ready to tell you were the first interviewer, I was ready to call it quits right after the first one. But no, you did a great job. And congratulations to you and Tony Colonna, your sergeant, so. Thank you. That's all I have. I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Harrigan?
Aye.
Levin? Mirabella?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Whitmore? Aye.
Meeting on.